Hello and welcome to Speaking Out on Financial Abuse. Stories of survival and hope after financial abuse in a marriage or romantic partnership. I'm your host, Lori G. And what is betrayal trauma? Today I'm excited to have Mr. J. Mr. J is an interpersonal relationship coach and a betrayal trauma practitioner. Mr. J helps his clients go from breakdown to breakthrough, from victim to victor, from hurt to hopeful, from tears to transformation, and from survival to revival. Mr. J is here to explain betrayal trauma and how you can move forward out of a ruminating situation and onto a new and exciting, from grief to growth and from better, not bitter life. Welcome, Mr. J, to the program. So where in the world are you and where are you from originally?
I'm in the great state of New York. Well, great depending on where you are on the political spectrum, I guess. But I am in New York, and actually upstate New York, where fall is very beautiful. Lots of festivals, fairs, carnivals. I love fall in New York, taking my kids apple and pumpkin picking. And this is where I was hatched originally.
Let's just get right into it. You say on your website, and I'm going to quote you, you said, "Lord knows I've been there." You write, "All my life, I saw all my friends thrive while I struggled every day just to survive." What did you mean by that? What is your background in becoming now a trauma transformer, which, sounds like an action figure. Sounds like you should be an action figure.
Yeah, actually, that would be interesting if Mattel got a hold of me one day and said, "Hey, Mr. J,
trauma transformer. It's a bird. It's a plane."
It's Mr.
J. So where did these statements come from? Clearly, you said you really had some difficulties growing up. So tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I don't necessarily subscribe to the little T and the big T trauma and all this other stuff necessarily per se, but I will say this. There's a big difference between being raised in a dysfunctional home, in an abusive home, in a home where there's a lot of trauma. Then you can also up it a level and say it's one thing to have a traumatic or abusive experience. Then it's a completely different to marinate in trauma and abuse. And kids that marinate in trauma and abuse, their world lens is completely different from all other kids. I don't know if I've shared this, but before I reached 6th grade, I was in 30 different schools. So There was never, ever once where I started school and I graduated with that class knowing my classmates. So even on that front, disrupted my attachment, which really added to the unsafety of, my nervous system, my childhood. So when you marinate in dysfunction and abuse and toxicity, your nervous system is completely set up to be in a constant state of hypervigilance even before you reach your teens, which is very, very unhealthy because it completely disrupts your internal system, setting yourself up for a life of tremendous, profound challenges. So, everything from, add what I just said to poverty and then being a child of, divorce and a very destructive, loud, violent divorce, in my childhood. It just really adds tremendous challenges. So when all of my friends were, it didn't matter. It didn't, playing sports on the weekend with their dad, or maybe going and buying a suit for the prom. Like, these are things that not only do a lot of kids not experience, certainly I didn't, but your world view gets extremely skewed. So even if some of those nice, regular, common, normal activities do present themselves, they're not the same as somebody who has a completely different lens from marinating in abuse. And so that's what I meant by that, is that
were you military? I'm sorry, were you a military kid? Is that why you moved 30 times?
No,
why did you move 30 times?
My parents, it was like living in a World War III zone. So, my father would go to work and my mother would move out before he got home from work. My mother wanted to buy Christmas gifts so she wouldn't pay rent in December and January, we'd get thrown out. Or, I could tell you a million different reasons. Or,
wow,
money was used on things that shouldn't have been. Or, what have you.
So you really
And
grew up a child of financial abuse. You really
oh,
saw that as a domestic violence issue in your own childhood, which is really common for financial abuse survivors who have grown up with this kind of dysfunctional view of what the purpose of money is.
without question, without question. Yeah. Not only were there lots of stipulations as examples I saw, on with my parents, and I put that stipulations very kindly. What I mean was there was a lot of financial control in different areas. But like I said, poverty, I mean, well, I won't get into it, but I'm no stranger to government cheese lines.
Wow. And then you went to college from there? What started breaking this for you? What started causing you to develop some critical thinking? And look at this upbringing you've had, which was clearly chaotic financially, emotionally. Like you said, everything's a moving target all the time. You're always in fight or flight. When did that change start to happen? How old were you when you started, again, developing some critical thinking with this?
Yeah. And boy, you are right. Always in a state of fight or flight, even when you're sleeping. So I'm gonna try to skip over a few things very quickly. So I quit school in sixth grade, and I basically had to lie and get a job during the day bagging groceries, and then getting another job in the evening bagging groceries, and telling each of my bosses that I went to school. Like, for instance, if when I worked during the day, I told my boss, "Oh, I go to night school," and when I worked during the day, I told at night I told my boss I went to whatever. So I got my own apartment when I was 14. It's a whole nother story. But after I lost my jobs, this was I don't even know, 16, I guess. I became homeless for a while. It's funny, I recently took my kids to the place where I used to stay under a bridge and tell them. I used to listen to the cars go by up ahead of me. And I'd always think about, I wonder where that family is going. Maybe they're going to Disney World with their parents. I used to always that's how I
Oh,
would spend my time.
goodness.
But, anyways, when I was about 19 years old, I decided to walk to the community college, and that was not a short walk. It was quite a far walk. I walked to the community college, and nobody in my family went to college. Nobody in my family joined the military. I did not know any of the Mickey Mouse stuff of college whatsoever. I remember waiting in line in college, and my God, I must have waited 4.5 hours in line just to be told when I got up front, "Sorry, you're in the wrong line." I mean, just
Oh,
some of the basic things. And it was, but anyways, I finally got myself in front of an advisor, and she was like, "Okay, I'll take your high school transcripts." And I said, "Well, I never went to high school." She said, "Okay, well, I need some emancipation letter. And I said, "Well, I don't really talk to my parents. I don't really know how to get a hold of them." She was like, "Okay, well, do you have a GED?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Well, three strikes, you're out. I'm not sure what you want me to do." And I sat across from her, while she's stapling all these acceptance letters. She pound accepted, pound approved or accepted, whatever. And with every pound, I'm just feeling myself being deflated because I'm across from her. And I just, at one point, her name was Mary McMahon. And if she ever listens to the podcast, I hope she gets a hold of me, or I try to find her. But she turned at one point in her chair, and she was doing something. And I was just like, "You know what, Jay, maybe you just need to get up and walk away." She turned around in her chair, and she put a piece of paper in front of me. And she said, "I'm going to give you one semester to prove yourself. And if you don't, we never had this conversation." And I went on to get my associates with honors. And then I went on to get my
wow.
bachelor's degree with honors. And then I went to get my master's degree with honors. So I owe a lot of my degree to this one woman who just believed in me, gave me an opportunity and a chance.
So you started looking at this from a recovery healing process for yourself as you got an education. And then where did you start saying, I really want to get involved, not just helping people as a mental health professional or as a personal counselor, but you got into something that you call betrayal trauma practicing, or being a betrayal trauma practitioner. So, what is that? And how did you get to doing that?
Yeah. So thank you for asking. When I graduated with college, I started out as a youth counselor. And I spent a lot of time with working with youth in many different capacities, whether they were abused or they were the abuser or what happened, or they were violent or aggressive, what happened. Then after I started, I got my teaching certification, special education, and I taught in a lot of great places. In Georgia, I taught in a hospital because even though kids are still in the hospital, whether it's from leukemia or whatever, long term, they still need an education. I taught in a hospital. That was nice. Then I worked in DC for a while, and I worked in a juvenile detention center. And this was basically the last stop before kids went into a facility. So it was a pretty violent teaching job. A couple of teachers left in ambulances, but every single year for the 3.5 years I was there, every single year I got best classroom management, which was very difficult in my field, in my teaching, because these kids, I mean, talk about coming from a dysfunctional, abusive childhood. I would have students that, I'll give you a perfect example, and this is just pretty common. I was talking to one student who, I had to wind up putting him into like a safety hold because he was very aggressive. And he wound up breaking down crying. And he said, I was at my brother's funeral yesterday, and his brother was 14. He was like, I was at my brother's funeral yesterday, and as we were walking out of the funeral, there was a drive-by shooting and my cousin got shot. And so now it would have been nice if his mother would have gave me some heads up, hey, so-and-so is going to be coming to school today. But whatever, that's a whole nother thing with the school system, is family involvement. But anyway, so that was the kind of school that I taught. Then we adopted our first child, and it was very important that one of us stay home. So I stayed home. I stayed home for over 10 years. I stayed home for over 10 years. And I still did some things like either volunteering or, maybe did a public speaking engagement here and there. I did some things to keep myself active and involved and so forth. But it wasn't until my father tragically died, this was a few years ago, we were talking on the phone one day and, laughing and telling jokes. And like literally 4 days later, we were lowering him into the ground. And it was a couple of days after that, I woke up in the middle of the night with my first panic attack. Never experienced a panic attack before. And I'll tell you something, heard about them. And when you hear about things that you don't have experience in, you sit there and you nod your head and you're like, yeah, I get it. No, you don't. Man, panic attack feels like you're dying. You are dying. It's scary. But anyways, I said, oh my gosh, I think my father's death is bringing up a lot of unhealed childhood trauma. And it was that journey that I went on that actually called me into this field. I never pursued this field. This field called me and pursued me. And I started talking to people that have been betrayed. I didn't know that there was a term for it. I wound up getting into a few programs. And next thing you know, I talked with this wonderful person, Dr. Debbie Silver, who literally has written the book on betrayal trauma. And I went through her program to get certified as a betrayal trauma practitioner. The difference between a betrayal trauma coach and a betrayal trauma practitioner is a betrayal trauma coach is certified as a betrayal in betrayal trauma. A betrayal trauma practitioner is certified in betrayal trauma, but also has a health and psychological background, such as I do. Those are the differences, because a lot of people say, well, why don't you call yourself a betrayal trauma coach? I could care less what you call me, but just to give you the background. And so then I had another friend who was in the business, and he said, Mr. J, you should create a TikTok account. And I said, oh, no. I'm not into 18-year-old girls flashing their boobs and T-shirts. And they're like, no. No, there are those on TikTok. There are those, but there's a whole nother professional side too. And I didn't know that. Technology is not my thing. I'm 50. So I did create an account, and I what I told myself? I said, I'm going to make some videos for the mere fact that if I would have died tomorrow, I would take all the lessons of all the pain that I went through into the ground with me. And I don't want to do that. I want to share some of those lessons that I learned. And next thing you know, I'm just, posting videos. And short time after, I got, 10,000 followers, 15,000 followers, 20,000 followers, 25,000. Now I'm up to, almost 25,000 followers. And I could care less about the followers, because to be honest with you, if one person is going to change from the lessons that I've learned, that's all I care about. As a matter of fact, I don't even think I have a business account on TikTok. I shut off any money-making thing because I don't want that to be my driving force.
Yeah.
I don't care about ads. I don't care about making money. I don't want that to be my driving force. My driving force is I've been through hell. I want to hand people ice water that are walking out behind me. I do have a YouTube channel as well, but I post my longer content on there. Like if I teach a class twice a month and I give like tips and techniques on, getting over trauma and things like that. I post those classes on YouTube. But yeah, when it comes to TikTok, a minute to most.
Yeah.
Because you're right. People just want to skim, get their quick fix, their quick high, or their quick tip of how can I deal with this moment and then move on.
Yeah, they need to either flip a switch on or off. And that's what it helps to do.
Absolutely.
And you actually offer your clients a large range of trauma recovery tools. But let's talk all about relationship coaching. It seems like a lot of your mission is about providing a relationship coach to help, especially survivors of trauma, to change those everyday messages in their heads that some of us have heard for decades from a partner, like, you really don't look good in that color, when actually it really flattered you and brought attention, or I don't see why you should try anything when you're just going to fail. What does a relationship coach do, and how do you change that internal tape that's probably been running for years inside the heads of especially survivors of relationship trauma, financial abuse, all kinds of domestic violence?
I always say you could go to another country and just explore on your own. But wouldn't it make sense if you hire a tour guide, somebody that's been trained to giving you a tour, and somebody maybe that lives where you're going, that knows the little gems, the hidden whatever. So I think when it comes to relationship coaching, a lot of us have the examples of our caretakers growing up, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're healthy. Even if we had a decent, healthy childhood, doesn't necessarily mean that we know how to navigate love and relationships in adulthood. And that's what a coach does. A coach really tries to set up the foundation for a healthy relationship, first and foremost with the person themselves, starting with personal boundaries, personal narratives, things like that. And then branching out to the couple. I'm also a wedding officiant, so I marry couples. And so many times, especially if I'm marrying a younger couple and they do not want any premarital coaching, which that's their choice, no problem at all. A lot of times I'm standing in front of them and I'm thinking while I'm officiating, these two don't even know who the I am is. So how in the world are they going to profess the I do?
Yeah.
Do you even know what you're giving to your partner, who you're giving to your partner? Because let's face it, we all come to the relationship table with our own baggage, and subconsciously we want our partner to fix our baggage. Little do we know they got their own baggage, so they don't have the energy for your baggage, and they're actually hoping you fix theirs. And here, we have a lot of conflict. So one of the things I try to do as a relationship coach is, work on attachment styles, work on love languages. It's basically just a tour guide if you're traveling. Certainly, from the other standpoint, a practitioner, as far as betrayal trauma, I try to give people tips and techniques on things, everything from emotional flashbacks, we know them as triggers, to dealing with holidays. Holidays will be coming up. And, one of the things that I tell people, because a lot of holidays bring up both wonderful and sad memories. Holidays is when we miss our loved ones the most that have passed on. Holidays are when we feel alone because maybe we had a relationship and now we don't anymore. Holidays bring up a lot of things. And then, a lot of times if we're going through certain things around the holidays, we have certain friends and family members that A, don't know we're going through those things, or B, know they are and they're still callous. Aunt Tilda, who's always asking you your personal business, how come you're not pregnant yet? What's going on with so-and-so in your life? So just very quickly, not that you asked this, but I want to say one of the things I tell people all the time going into the holidays is, number one, try to have a preset of questions that you've already answered before you get in. So when you're sitting around the table and Aunt Sally says, hey, what happened to Todd? Where is he? Todd cheated on you and he's no longer in your life. You want to make sure that you are not so dysregulated you can't have a decent conversation. So what's going to be your Spitfire response? Have these written down. Another thing I tell people around the holidays is try to wear an anklet that reminds you of someone. I don't care if it's Wonder Woman, Superman, you're somebody that was strong in your family. And when you get triggered around the holidays and you're around the table so you can't get up and go run to the bathroom and cry, you can kind of just shake your leg a little and feel that anklet, that bracelet, and that give you some strength and or things like that. Another thing too, I tell people is, put up a bank tree in your house. What is a bank tree? A bank, a lot of us have these trees with like, oh, this was my decoration when I went with so and so to Honolulu, and this was my memory of so and so when we got married and we went to here, whatever. We don't want to put up those trees in the holiday because they're triggering. So how about put up a bank tree? It's a beautiful tree, but the decorations mean nothing. So there's a lot of little tips and tricks to do around the holidays as well.
Well, today's December 25th, which is when we're going to air this episode. And it seems to be the day that we all trade our authenticity for the opportunity to get along with people. And it's either that or we have a terrifying feeling that we're sitting with ghosts. And I think both of them are of equal challenge, and you can find yourself even doing simultaneously both because, there's just so much outward stimulation with these holidays, between the shopping and the movies and the Hallmark Channel. It really can bombard you from the exterior. And, it really almost comes down to what can you really give yourself for today being December 25th? And you are either heading to that dinner from hell that you do every year since you were 3, or, you're basically just, kind of chilling by yourself today. But, again, going back to relationship coaching and messages, what's a nice gift to give yourself today on Christmas Day as a gift? And I think the most important gift you can give yourself is here's a plan on how to change these messages in your head.
First of all, let me just say this. If we understood how damaging negative self-talk was, we would never say another negative thing to ourselves. That's number one. Number two, out of everybody's voice in the world, we are going to listen intently to our own the most. Number three, other people give us pain, we give ourselves suffering. So a lot of times when we take these messages or these narratives, this dialogue that we heard years ago, I don't care if it's from a teacher, you're never going to, equal anything or add up to anything or be anything, to our mother, to our father that might have said things, that's the record player that goes in our head. And I'm telling you something, our brains are very, very malleable, which is wonderful. But at the same token, we do create neural pathways in our brain where literally they have found people's brains etched out with certain information. You really, really, really have to catch yourself having thoughts so you can rephrase that narrative. That's number one, let me just say. Number two, and by the way, for everybody that's listening to this on Christmas, I have young kids. I always obviously Merry Christmas because I always want to make Christmas magical for my young kids and for myself too. I want to give myself that gift as well, if you celebrate. But one of the things that I want to say is this. One of the mottos I live by is if it costs you your peace, the price is too high. So if going to that dinner dysregulates you, and as long as you do it with love, you can bail out. No, there's no gun to your head saying you must come to dinner. And if somebody is not going to respect you for your decision, then that's on them. It's not on you. So you have to ask yourself which by the way, listen, I love Christmas. I want to make it magical for my kids. But I do always sing around this time of the year. It's the most strenuous time of the year. So, especially because from a nervous system perspective, our body can't distinguish between good stress and bad stress. It just knows stress. So we have to interpret that and all that other stuff. But anyway, One of the things I also want to say is this. One of the gifts that I think if people are alone and you want to make yourself a gift, especially around the Christmas season, is a vision board for the next year or upcoming years. And what is a vision board? Is what do I want to accomplish next year? Who do I want to be next year? Would I like to experience, whatever. So if you're sitting alone, and I'm going to tell you something, alone is not bad. Lonely is bad. Alone is not bad. Alone is necessary. Alone is crucial. Lonely, it might not be good, but alone is not bad. But if you're alone Give yourself the gift of saying, you know what, I want to work on me because I am the best gift that I can present to the world. And
Yes.
create yourself a vision board. For people that don't know what a vision board is, basically you're cutting out things that you see in newspapers and magazines of things you'd like to accomplish. If you want to learn Spanish, then you cut that out. If you want to learn how to sing, you cut out a singer, you put it on your vision board. If you want to travel the world, or if you want a Mercedes Benz, you cut one out, you put it on this vision board, you hang it somewhere where you look at, and that you draw attention to that, and you draw that which attracts you. So
And that
I
could
could
be
go on
hard
and on.
for survivors. That's hard for survivors to do, a vision board. And I know that from my own experience because, you put up a picture of Venice, but you hear that voice in your head, oh, you'll never be able to go there. I mean, just to be able to put up a vision board and not feel delusional, that this is not a delusional thing I'm doing. This is actually a proactive, mentally good thing you're doing. But those aren't the messages you've been giving. You've been giving failure messages for so many years. And I think that's a really great gift suggestion for yourself is just go buy a magazine for $10. Like one of those crazy magazines, what's it called, where it shows everybody with their $1 trillion yachts and their Cartier watches.
It could be anything. People
Yeah.
magazine.
Yeah. You want to go to a Keith Urban concert, and
Yeah. And listen, if somebody can't afford a $10 magazine, which a lot of people can't, then go Google some things and print out those images. Or, something, if you can't even do that because you can't afford a computer, and a lot of people can't afford a printer or a computer, draw a stick man or a stick woman of what you want to do. I mean, get creative. Lord knows I can get really creative because I was raised with no money.
Yeah, just use a stick person in front of the pyramids of Egypt. That would work for me for sure.
Yeah. And I want to tell you another thing too. If, as far as that negative voice, one of the things that I sometimes I encourage my clients to do this or recommend if they have a hard time with that internal voice is get a picture of your younger self. It could have been when you're 4, 6, 8, 14, it doesn't matter. And try to put a picture of your younger self on that vision board as well. Because the minute you look at that vision board, if you start a negative dialogue, you look at your younger self and say, I made a promise to you that I would no longer talk negatively, and I'm going to honor so I'm going to stop talking that. It jolts you out of your negative self-talk.
Well, what are your projects and goals coming up in 2025? I mean, you do such an amazing job, turning your passions into really an outright brand now. You've got a lot of healing care products like selected meditation music, focused body care for stress release, lots of add-ons to your core services and coaching and counseling. You also offer a lot of free articles and resources on the subject of relationship trauma. Was it always your intention to expand this far? And is this what you continue to do in 2025? Or is this kind of a surprise that this thing's kind of exploded? You've just got so many channels now that you're able to offer people going through betrayal trauma. What do you kind of see yourself doing 12 months from now?
Very good question, because a big part of me wants to say I have no clue. I live organically and I see what's presented to me. I want to make sure I'm always living open and authentically, and whatever, like for instance, I wrote, what was it, last year or the year before? I wrote and published a betrayal trauma journal. So basically there's writing prompts that you have to answer, and it's 90 days. And people answer those questions, and it brings you from, tears to transformation.
That's great.
That wasn't something I was planning on, it's just all of a sudden I think I was looking for a journal for my cousin who went through something tough, and I was trying to find, and all there were blank pages journal. And I was like, you know what? If there could be a journal that prompts you to help process your trauma, couldn't find one. So I was like, you know what? Then write one. And so that's what I did. So a lot of times it's just a matter of, the necessity that comes. One of the things I was thinking about, and this is very, very early, one of the things I was thinking about is, and again, I have young kids, so I have to balance work with responsibilities and being a dad and all this other stuff. But I was thinking, I may want to entertain corporate work. For instance, the big corporations that have 250, 500, 1,000 employees, I wouldn't mind going in there once a month and talking about betrayal trauma, because betrayal trauma affects the workplace significantly. And
big time.
Yeah, and if there's a corporation that would hire, and I'm not even trying to sell my services, because there's many people out there like me, at least I think so. Yeah, I don't care who you hire, but it would be beneficial to bring somebody in that that like me to talk about betrayal trauma and what it does to the individual and how that, because I can't tell you how many sick days people that are going through betrayal trauma take at the work. I can't tell you how many times there's lawsuits in the work because of sensitivities and triggers and things like that with people that have an abuse or dysfunctional background or trauma background. I can't tell you the FML. I mean, like the concentration, the focus, there's so many things that affect your work life when you've been betrayed. And even not to mention the sensitivity around the corporations that they can have. Because think about, because I'm going to tell you something very quickly, Lori. Betrayal trauma is different from any other trauma for various reasons. But one of the main reasons is because with betrayal trauma, it just doesn't affect the here and now and the future. Betrayal trauma also affects the past when other traumas don't. If right now you go outside, you get hit by a car and you're traumatized, it's going to affect who you are today and for the rest of your life. But when you find out that your husband's been cheating on you for 15 years, now you can't even look at old photo books because the past has been affected. That's one of the big differences between betrayal trauma and regular
music.
trauma.
You can't look at a house that looked like that. You can't even live in that part of the country anymore. I've so been there. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't ride down streets anymore. You can't talk to certain friends and people on your past, present, and future. And here's the deal, though. Now, unlike other traumas, let's just say, unfortunately, a parent passes away and that's traumatizing. You can call your boss and get bereavement time. But you look under your mattress or in your glove compartment and you find secret numbers that your spouse has been hiding and you're betrayed. The last thing you want to do is call your boss and say, listen, I need some time off to heal because I was cheated on. So we need also some sensitivity in the workplace as well. I want to know that I'm a good person. I want to know that I'm a fair person. I want to know that I'm a person of integrity, but I do have to cut the throat of this other person so I can get that sale. So, oh my God, that must, also do some damage to somebody's psyche as well over the years.
Okay, here's my 2 questions at the end of every show, but we're going to gear it towards the 25th since today is the 25th of December. What is your tip for someone listening right now on Christmas Day who is under abuse and wants to start making a mental change in how they view themselves while still in the relationship?
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I'm a very tactile person. So I just very quickly, I want to share an episode of Oprah I watched years ago. There was a lady that somehow, somewhere, she got a hold of an old pair of Oprah's shoes. I don't know if there was like a garage sale or something. She got a pair of Oprah's shoes. And she was actually in the audience one day and she stood up and she said, Oprah, I just want to tell you, I have a pair of your shoes on right now. And she showed Oprah her shoes. And Oprah said, oh my God, I remember having those. And she said, I want to tell you that there's been a lot of struggle in my life, a lot of struggle, a lot of heartache, headache, tears. And on days where I don't think that I could just get through one more day, there's days I could barely get out of bed. She said, I specifically put your pair of shoes on because I know you've been through a lot in your life. And I tell you, if Oprah can do it, I can survive this. I can do it. So I wonder if somebody can take something tactile. I don't care if it's a bracelet, a ring, a string that you can put in your pocket, a pair of shoes. Can you take something of somebody that you believe has strength, bravery, fortitude, somebody that you would love to be like in some capacity? Maybe you don't have the bravery or the context right now, but somebody you can just put something on that you revere, you respect, you look up to in some capacity. Have that on your person. And every time you get that negative dialogue in your head, you feel whatever it is that you have on, the ring, the bracelet, and say, no, this is in my lineage. This is in my ancestry. This is in my heritage. I'm going to be, I don't know how and I don't know when, but I'm a survivor. I will get through this.
Or print out a text message or an email from somebody who really said something great about you and just put it in your pocket. Just to hold it out. Wow, I am proud to know you as my friend. And just keep reading it every time they say something negative.
100%.
And one more tip. What is your tip for someone listening right now on Christmas Day who is a survivor of abuse, starting over and needs some tips on how to change their toxic internal messages today? Because I got from now, they're sitting here until midnight and they're by themselves and they really want to give themselves. Again, you made some really great suggestions about doing some active things. But if someone's just got a few seconds to listen to this, what's a real
Yeah.
quick tip? I'm sitting here alone in front of the TV. What's something I can tell myself right now? That's a tip.
Okay, I'm gonna just very quickly tell you what I hear from people all the time, all day long. Why me? And I tell people when you ask why me, it puts you in the victim status. Instead of asking why me, ask what now. That puts you in the driver's seat of your life. So if you're listening to this and you want a quick tip, if you catch yourself saying why me, don't refuse to even entertain that. Ask yourself what now. That puts you from the victim seat into the victor seat.
Well, I am so thrilled to have had you once again. You have been listening to Mr. J. Mr. J, you can find his website at mrjrelationshipcoach.com. I also have multiple links for him because he does have multiple resources. They are all worth independently thinking about yourself and investing in, obviously, some of these great add-ons. I think that investing in yourself with healing care, not just with coaching, and not just with changing your thinking, but physically learning to spoil yourself a little bit. And that's another thing I love about what you do is that you have expanded it into, get some wraps, get some body care for yourself, and find ways to start looking at yourself as an authentic person that is worth your own time. And I think that's what
Absolutely.
you do
Because
best.
very quickly, you can't pour from an empty cup. And self-care is not vanity, it's sanity. So everything in your overflowing out of your cup is for everybody else, but you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, you can't be the Dead Sea. It doesn't work. Things flow in, but nothing flows out. So, well, thank you so much again. I hope to have you back. And again, this is Speaking Out of Financial Abuse. I'm Lori G, and you've been listening to Mr. J at mrjrelationshipcoach.com. Thank you again, and I hope to have you soon.